Welcome back to the Power of Positivity podcast. Today we've got an extra special guest. My mum! There she is. If you're watching online, you can see her. We're sitting on the settee with the electric blankets on because, as we all know, I don't like putting the heating on. I have put it on, but I haven't got radiating yet, so there we are. And we've got my mum's special blanket over the top. So my mother said, we look like we're in bed. We're not. We've got a cup of coffees. Cheers, mum.
Cheers.
Lovely. And we are ready to have a nice little chat. So thanks for coming on to my podcast, ma'am. So today I just wanted to talk to you about your career and a bit about you, who you are, and where I get all my positivity from, really, which is you, innit?
Yeah.
I love how serious my mother's gone.
It's definitely not your dad.
It's definitely not.
And whoever knows Gary knows that he's not positive in any shape or form.
No, he's negative.
Yes.
He's the polar opposite of us, isn't he?
Oh, definitely.
We love him. But
we love him to death, but I don't know where I got him from.
This is going to be all about from Knicker factory to clinical nurse specialist. This is what today's episode is going to be about. So, the floor is yours, ma'am. Where do you want to start?
I'd start, I think, when I was in school. I'd never ever thought of what I was going to be or who I was going to be or whatever. I just never thought of more than the minute that I was in.
Yeah.
And when we were finishing school, being in a secondary education, you had to finish at 15. You could not go on to do, with a grammar school, you could go on to do A-levels and whatever. We couldn't even do GCSEs in our school. 15, you finished. You put out into the world, you do what you want to do or whatever. My mother wanted me to go to college because at that time I knew I wanted to go nursing. And no, I couldn't because unknown to me then I was dyslexic and I didn't have any clues how to do things and confidence to do it. The next thing, as everybody did at that time, went to Kayser Bondor.
Yeah.
So Kayser Bondor was like the factory everybody went to. You went for an interview, you had to pick up a couple of pins, you had to show that you could do something. It was all like, they taught you on the job anyway. That's all you're there for is to make knickers. I was there on the knicker line. My sister was on the specials, she did the petticoats, but I did the knickers. It's a theme that you'll see coming through. So the knicker line I was going to be put on, so I went to do some training, was put into the knicker line.
So like you talk about training, but I'm going to interrupt you because I want to know more. So when you went in on your first day, what sort of happened? So you knew you did your little interview then with picking up your pins.
Yeah, picking up my pins. So they can pick up pins. And once I can pick up pins, you can work in a factory.
Right, okay. So then you were allocated the knicker line.
Yeah.
So what was your first day like then? Do you remember your first day?
Well, I don't think I was allocated the knicker line.
Right.
We went into a training school, which is just like a little room, and so many of us started in one day because you've all finished school at one time. You were virtually all in the training thing together and tried on different machines. Can't really remember much about it, and then transferred into the knicker line. I can't remember it because it didn't faze me at all. My sister also worked there, so I think that made a difference, because when I went there I had somebody there who was in the factory who I went with, so I didn't do any of that on my own.
Yeah, it's a big difference to them because somebody there with it.
Yeah. And my sister was always a bit of a bossy one at the time, She would always tell me what I should and shouldn't be thinking and doing.
She is the older sister, though.
She is my older sister. Now I look at it and I think, and everybody says, I say, she's my sister, and I say, she's my older sister. And we laugh because we've got a fantastic relationship, even now. But going back to Kayser Bondor then, so I went out onto the knicker line, and first of all they put me on this machine that put the big thick elastic into the big granny knickers. And they were big, and you had to be really, really good at keeping the machine they called, and there was another one girl doing it and they wanted me to train up. Well, I hated it. Absolutely hated it. And consequently I went out the toilet, had a cry, and never came back in until they found me. They came out and found me and they said, you won't put you back on there, because I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. It was a failure to me. I couldn't do enough fast enough for them. So then I was put onto an overlocker then, and then so we were in like little rows, and the girl, you were in like rows of 4, and so there'd be 4 rows of overlocking, and then there'd be a box of your work, and in each box was the knickers, which is the small knickers usually, and then they had a piece of paper in it, and for each part you signed that you did whatever. So,
okay.
But the only
Like
problem,
a quality check.
yeah, so if they had to go back, they would go back to that. The only problem I had with that was that my clock-in number was 1111.
Right.
Which is very unique.
Yes.
But the girl next door to me was 1117. And she never crosses that 7. So we had a lot of work back. We didn't know whose work it was.
Oh.
Because it was very similar. Although she was a better worker than me. I got to be honest with you. I to start as I mean to go on, when I went into the factory and when I was there, I knew I was only going to do about 2 years. And at the time, it was piecework. So if you really worked hard, you could earn a lot of money.
Yeah.
But if you didn't work hard, they'd pay you anyway. So I learned very quickly that I didn't work very hard and I got paid anyway. So... Yeah, why?
So, well, it's what you did your job anyway.
Yeah, that was me. That was my positivity thing, thinking, oh, that's good. I am going to work hard and I still get paid. I stayed there for 2 years, and in those 2 years learned quite a lot. One of the things I learned is how to smoke, because if you smoked, then you had extra bog breaks, which is toilet breaks, which is when you went out to the toilets and had a cigarette. So if you didn't smoke, you didn't have the extra breaks. So I learned how to smoke to have extra breaks, as well as getting paid for doing shit
think
all.
about that now.
Yeah.
Like how back then, well, even in my first like factory working experience, people did, still to this day, I don't know about now because I haven't worked in it for quite some time, but smokers still got extra breaks.
Oh, yeah.
Because they got to walk up to the smoking area and walk back.
Oh,
but it's very different now. They are more kept an eye on, but whereas back then, I can imagine why you smoked, because you think
but we only had to walk across the corridor to the toilet.
Yeah.
The toilet was the smoking area.
Right, okay. Yeah.
So everybody congregated in the toilet, and that's where all the news and the gossip and everything came, and it was a fantastic social area.
Yeah.
And
you were missing out otherwise.
Oh yeah, it was brilliant, and they were fantastic girls to me. And I think to myself, when I did go to Kayser Bondor from school, thinking you're all grown up, I was just a child. I was just a mere child, you know. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. Like I said, knew I wanted to go nursing, but didn't really have a big ambition in my life, and didn't really have a big ambition about myself. Never thought of myself as being, I'm going to be a nurse, you know.
Yeah.
That's just where I was going to go. But Kayser Bondor, and as I said, big knickers, and sometimes, you know, you'd be doing your work, and we used to have all the mechanics there then, because the machines were like going constantly.
Breaking.
The noise that was there and everything, and sometimes I'd again feel a bit fed up putting the same knickers through and through and through, so I used to jam a pair of knickers in the machine, and then say, oh, I need a mechanic. So I'd have 15 minutes off to go to the toilet and have a fag. You know, I was an extra break. So I was a bit of a lazy, really, but not intentionally lazy. It just interfered with me. I just didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
You know?
But I always think to myself, we all fall into our place in some certain ways, and we've got to try stuff to know we don't like it. And you knew you didn't want to stay there long term. And...
well, I knew I wasn't.
Yeah, it didn't, like you said, you wanted to stay there 2 years, and... especially when you're younger, just like you said, I think you feel like you're invincible.
It's part of your life where, I got to be honest with you, I always say to everybody, Kayser Bondor was my saviour, because it showed me what life was about, what people were about, when people had problems, how nice people could be, how nasty people could be. It gave me a social thing of people. So when I eventually went nursing, I felt as if I was going into nursing with at least some experience with people.
Yeah, and I can relate to that a little bit when I worked in retail. And as you know, because you were my mum, you were there, you learn very quickly, especially in, you know, it was a big female environment, is that everybody talks about each other.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying men don't do the same, but it's different characteristics. And I learned who you can say things to and who you can't. And you learn very quickly who you can trust and who you can't trust. And that set me up to learn to respect people a bit more, to understand and not gossip, basically, and learn that you can hurt people with what you say, and how very quickly that taught me massively, though, that I was not a favourite.
Yeah.
I did 9 till 1 shift in a year because all the favourite girls had a, and it's no when, but I was the same as you in that job. I went in and did my job well. I didn't jam the making machine or have extra breaks or smoking, but I went in and just did my job and went home. I'd always do cover shifts, and I'd always do the afternoon cover shifts because I didn't go out like everybody else. So I didn't mind doing that, but I was never thought highly of because I was never given those premium shifts like you talk about.
Yeah.
So no, I do get that.
Yeah, the favourite.
Yeah. And I thought, I'm glad I wasn't.
Yeah.
So I probably would have stayed there longer than I should have.
Yeah, same as me. I wasn't a favourite. I was okay, well liked, I suppose, to what I thought, but I never really thought about it anyway. I was just me. You know, I never had a lot of friends in my life. Built a couple along the way. Didn't trust anybody in my life, but there you understand why.
Yeah.
Relating to talking to people, and I always wanted to be everybody's friend, so I tried very hard, but then at the same time I didn't try very hard because I didn't trust anybody. So I never had friends like you've got friends.
Yeah.
You know, like you and Claire.
Yeah.
I never had that relationship ever, you know, so I was very much a loner then, really.
Yeah.
I was very much, I could do what I wanted when I wanted and how I wanted.
Yeah.
You know, and it was a bit of a cockiness, I suppose, but at the same time, I was very much like you, very confident too, you know, and I could...
Well, I get it from somebody.
And get it from, you know, and it's nice. I'm not ashamed of what I am. I'm not ashamed of what I've done in my life, you know, but I do absolutely love my life at the moment because I have got the most fantastic, brilliant soulmate friends that I could ever meet. And they were met, we could do another story on that.
Yeah.
I met them in different circumstances, in different ways, but they will always be my soulmate, you know, they will always be there. Yeah. So I've never experienced that.
Well, you've listened to if anyone hasn't listened, there's a podcast about love, and now it's platonic and not necessarily romance. Romance doesn't have to be the only source of love and friendship, does it really? It can come from loads of different ways.
What I get, going off the point now, what I get from my friends is different.
This is where I get it from.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I was in Bondor for 2 years, and then I wrote to the matron and said...
So, matron of where?
Of Merthyr General Hospital, which is the matron of the training type thing. And I asked her, must have been to have like an entrance test. Just had to answer. It was like a pre-exam to go into nursing. And of course, not having any confidence. I went there, no revision or nothing. Just turned up thinking...
You just winging away, you?
I didn't know what I wanted, but didn't know what I had to do. I didn't have nothing. I didn't know anybody that was nursing, so I didn't have any preconceptions about what I was going to do.
So why did you choose to go to Merthyr General and go and do that test? And what made you? So if no one had ever, you just said Nanny had said to you that she wanted you to be a nurse, and that. Is that why you went that day then? If you had no one in the world who'd been a nurse to maybe aspire to be?
I just didn't want to stay in Kayser Bondor as well. Right. But I did want to be. I did want to be a nurse. I've always, I think, later in life, it was 2 jobs, nurse or policewoman. One of those 2.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
One of those
you told me that before.
Yeah. So it was nursing came tops, and I was at the time a caring person. Caring to my mother, caring to, you know, people. I had no outlet, so that was the best thing I could do, was to, what I wanted to do was to nurse somebody. I wanted to be nice with people. I wanted to be nice. But more than anything in the world, I wanted people to like me.
Yes.
And to be a nurse, they would like me.
Okay.
And then I had to go to Gwelydy Garth, it used to be the training school. So Gwelydy Garth was, not far from Gyfartha Park, the next gate's to Gyfartha Park. Gwelydy Garth was where Crochet lived originally.
Okay.
Crochet was a big, powerful Merthyr man, and that was one of his houses, and it was a big house, but it was then converted into a training school. Okay. Some of the girls lived there when they were doing their training, and it had everything there. It was a training school. So it wasn't far from Knicker where I lived, so I only had to because we walked everywhere, walked through the Gurness down into there, did the exam. So I was just given a piece of paper and said, you know, can you just answer, you know, this is your exam thing, you know, can you do it? I did my best. And when I came out, I was told that I would be accepted for nursing, but it would be for an SEN, which was a state enrolled nurse, which was a 2-year training. And we were then known as the bedside nurse, because we were not so much academic, we were very, very hands-on. So my training would be 2 years, we would have a qualification at the end, but it would be a different training to SRN, which is State Registered Nurse. And the State Registered Nurses could go on to become staff nurses and sisters. SENs were SENs for their life. You couldn't go from being an SEN.
Okay.
And at the time in nursing, there were a lot of SENs, because we were the bedside nurses. We were the ones that did everything patient-wise, caring. So we were taught in a different way, as SRNs were taught to know more about medicines, to know more about everything, because they needed to know, because they would go on. We were taught very much hands-on, blanket baths, doing the flowers, doing the blood pressures, sitting talking to the patients, making sure they were fine. Very hands-on.
Okay.
That there was a difference in the training, entirely different. At the time, I didn't realise there was a difference in training. So the first day I went into merthyr, I finished in Kayser Bondor. I finished at Christmas time. And
so did you used to put your notice in back in the day? Would you just write a letter and say,
yeah, write a letter and
gonna...
say, I wish to give in 2 weeks. You wouldn't be told, you know, yes or no. It was just you were going to retire. Okay. So I knew I was going nursing, and again, I didn't have any coordination between anything, but I was given a date for nursing. I started my nursing training. Well, I didn't start my training. I started nursing experience on the 1st of January 1970, which was like quite a surprise to me, because it was like the morning after New Year's Eve, so I couldn't go out and I couldn't have a drink and I couldn't do anything because I was starting at 9 o'clock on New Year's Day. So I just went to matron's office on the 1st. I was given uniforms to wear. I was what they call then a pre-nursing student, which is, we wore yellow. We were called like daffodils. So it was like, you weren't in training, but you worked on the wards and you learned most of the stuff, but it didn't have anything to do with your training at all.
It was a way of getting ahead with understanding the basics, isn't it?
Yes, which was a great help to me, because I didn't have the education because of dyslexia.
Yeah.
And I forgot to say that I finished school without any qualifications at all. I started on Anne Lewis Ward, which is in merthyr. As you go into the main door, if you turned left, you went to matron's office, and then to the very end. And then if you turned left, you go to Lewis Ward. And that was where I was going to be stationed until I went into my training.
Right, okay. So what date was your training going to start?
I was very, very lucky, so I've learnt, that I was only 17 when I went in the very, very beginning, so I wasn't even 18. I was going to start training in the beginning of April, and the training was for 4 weeks, and I could go into training because I would have been 18 coming out of it, because my birthday is about April. Okay. So as long as I was 18 coming out of, I couldn't go onto the wards to be trained until I was 18. Right. So as it was very, very convenient.
Timed well.
Yeah, it timed well, because I went into, as I said, I went into nursing, and I could join that sets, they called us then. Right, okay. We were called sets.
So how many of you were in this pre-training? When you were daffodils.
We varied, because again, there was daffodils who were going to be staff nurses, and there was daffodils who was going to be SENs like me, and we had our own room to change into. I made some very good friends there. I think there must have been about a core of about 6. And we was just splashed all over we could work anywhere in the hospitals, because we were like that in between. You were
additional labour, let's be honest.
Additional labour. We were paid. Yeah. The good thing was we were 9 till 5. So we only worked 9 till 5 Monday to Friday.
Oh my God, what a lovely
shift. And we had our dinners given to us as well. So we go to the main, and the dining room is a lovely experience, the dining room in merthyr. It was massive. It was right in the front, if you know merthyr, and you could look out the windows and you could see the world. But it had the old table for matron and sisters, and it had a table then for staff nurses, and then we were behind. It
was like the hierarchy.
Oh, definitely.
It was a hierarchy dining room.
Yeah. But the food was to die for. It was absolutely...
What was your favourite meal in it?
Oh, anything, because I just loved it all, because it was all so well.
And it was free.
Yeah, It was free. And not only that, I mean, my mother being a mum of 4, we had very good food, and besides the crisp sandwiches, we had some very good food, but we didn't have fancy food or anything. Whatever she made was there. But we'd have like, you know, meat and gravy and things in the week, and chips, and
proper luxury.
It was and a dessert, like, it was just unbelievable. It was fabulous. So I did put a bit of weight on, but you had the hierarchy, and when you went in, you still wore, because at that time, I didn't have an apron, because we just had our yellows. So we had a yellow overall thing, which is the same as a nurse's outfit, but only in yellow. But when the staff nurses came in, they still wore their pinnies or their aprons from the wards. So they used to, when they came in, to sit down, because your pinny was starched and it went underneath you, you folded it up on top of one another to sit down to have your food. And when they did that, they turned the thing over, your penny over, and you could see who the workers were, because you could write on it. It was like paper, because it was starched. So when you went to a patient and they had a temperature of 30 whatever, then you put it on your penny. So, and then if anybody rang and they wanted to pass a message, you put it on your penny. It was like a notepad.
Right, so you folded your penny over, or so you could tell the workers all, because when they were sitting in the dining room, they'd fold their penny over and you could see all the writing.
Yeah. Right. So it was like you wore a new clean penny every day, and it was just starched, and it was the most brilliant way to remember everything, because you just picked your penny up.
Do you know what's mad listening to this? So you told me before about infection control. They used to be, supposed to be like super clean, but then they wore the pennies to dinner.
Yeah, because it wasn't classed as being unclean, because it was clean every day, so you wore it for the day. It was nothing to do with being at the bedside and being with patients' wounds and different things. No, you were on the ward, you were clean, you came on clean in the morning, you washed your hands constantly. Because I remember when I first started nursing, I had to have a thing of cream in my pocket, because my hands were chaffed.
Yeah, from washing your hands.
Very broken up, because I never washed my hands so much in my life.
Yeah.
But it was good, so I think in that way it was. But yes, when you think of it now,
you'd never.
I mean, obviously, if there was anything like blood or anything, it would be taken off and changed. But it was just your penny, and you are right.
Yeah.
It was just, you never took your penny off.
Yeah, that's mad too when you think about it.
Yeah. Never.
But making a note, that's mad. When you tell a story, like, I mean, you've got very vivid imaginations. I'm there with you in there. I can see somebody's handwritten their little notes on the side, like blood pressure.
Brilliant. I loved it. So, and then I went into training then. So, of course, but when I was in my pre-nursing state, I had the sister of the ward was a brilliant sister. She was a spinster. She was a very, very good sister.
Back in the day, and it's important we talk about this. So they say back in the day was spinster was when she wasn't married then, is it?
She wasn't married.
Yeah.
You weren't really encouraged to be married. I don't think at that time that you were married if you were a sister. If you had to be a sister, you had to be single. I think. Right. I'm not completely 100% on that. And then there were staff nurses on there, and then there was students and pupils. And that's the other thing. SENs were pupil nurses, students were student. For the SRN course, it was a student nurse. So you had 2 different job titles.
Right.
You had a pupil nurse and a student nurse, so they were classed as different. We were very segregated, but at the same time, when we worked together. There was no segregation as for work. From that first ward, I met some most fantastic friends who are still my friends today. The ward's staff nurse, she had just passed her staff nurse grade, and they went into their blues then. From the students had a grey stripe, pupils had a purple stripe, a mauve lilac-y stripe, and so they went into blues, and we went as SENs, we went into greens. And they were trying to get her to put her staff nurse's uniform, because she qualified and she was working, but she didn't want to. And her name was Linda Taylor, and my God, what a lovely, wonderful nurse. And I knew her right through until she retired. And if I meet her in town now, we still have a really good chat, because we were good friends, colleagues.
Yeah.
She taught me quite a lot, because at that time she taught me, because of my dyslexia, as I didn't know then, my dyslexia, I couldn't learn things from a book. So I was very queued up. If you taught me something and you showed me once, I would just be able to do it.
So you were much more practical learner rather than a
Yes.
reading learner.
Yeah. By the time I went into my training, I could do a blood pressure, I could do a temperature, I could make a bed, I could do a special bed, because we used to have different types of beds. You know, like theatre beds had to be folded a different way. There was all different ones. You had cages, you had different things. So I had been taught all that before I went into nursing. So to me, when I went into my actual training, that helped me tremendously, because then I had the time that I didn't need to spend on that, I could spend on my written work.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of written work, and I passed it and I did it. But I don't know how, you know, I was always very lucky.
You say that though, Mum, but you just taught me through there. You just taught yourself another way of learning things, that you did it practically, and like, is lucky the right word? Because I'm really passionate about this, because I think we say we're lucky, but you probably did try hard.
Yeah, I think possibly thinking about it since, I wasn't lucky. And it wasn't that I was lucky that I had the question I could answer, but it was that I had done quite a bit of research into it. So I had put quite a bit into it, but then because I passed it, I felt lucky. So it was lucky that I passed.
No, and I get that, and it took a lot more work, especially if you were dyslexic, because I'm dyslexic and I've obviously got it from you, is that things are harder.
Oh, yes.
Everything's harder to do.
Yeah.
So you have to put a bit more effort in and a bit more things, and like, so I know what you mean. The luck was the question, but that came up because you'd read that or researched that question so much, if that makes sense.
Oh, I was lucky. I knew that one.
Yeah. We've all been there.
Yeah. I came out to training and I went to do all the wards. And the wards that we did then were, we did a 2-year training, like I said, and we worked between Merthyr General and St Tidvil's. There was 2 hospitals, mainly because like in Merthyr Gen you had ENT and eyes and theatres. In St Tidvil's you had maternity, you had gynae, you had orthopaedic, which is different to Merthyr Gen. They had their specialities, so you had to work in the 2 hospitals to be able to get a rounded experience. Yeah.
Okay, lovely. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to stop us here, because we've done an half an hour episode already. So I'm laughing because my mum is an amazing storyteller. So we've heard from your Knicker factory days all the way up to your yellow training and your daffodil, look at me, active listening, all the way up to going into your specialist areas and going across the orthopaedics and Merthyr Gen and St Tidvil's, you said, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So we'll stop here, because you'll have to come back next week for the next episode, where she tells you all about how she got to be a clinical nurse specialist.